when you put yourself and you go back and review the written work back then and you reconstruct it, what you realize is you always, right? History often, it may not repeat exactly, but it rhymes. Mark Twain is to have said that. But in financial markets, being a historian is one of the greatest things you can do. And so we spent tens of thousands of hours studying the prior cycle. And whether it was understanding the numbers or understanding the psyche and reading and talking to people. And at the end of the day, when contracting really started in mass and really big, where they were contracting 130, 150, 180% of, not 180, but 150 of their annual consumption from 35% of annual consumption. When you really sat down and said, okay, pre-Cigar Lake flood and post-Cigar Lake flood, what did the supply demand look like? What was the consensus numbers? It was a surplus. And the surplus was bigger post the Cigar Lake flood because the consensus numbers brought some different supply online. They reduced demand a little bit. And at the end of the day, if you looked out over the next 8 years and said, I'm a fuel buyer, I want a contract for 5, 7, 10 years, let's pick 8. What does that number look like? How much pounds? There was a surplus of nearly 200 million pounds, like 165, 70 million pounds, right? So you're like, okay, that's after the Cigar Lake flood.
So why was there this panic into uranium then?
Yeah, so because there was a perceived shortage, because in the short term, there was a misdelivery, a ship ran afloat, right? So a spot market, this whole thing about spot uranium in uranium is a surplus disposal market. 80% of sales occur in this term contract market, typically, 7, 8, 9, 10 years, because utilities are worried about security of supply. But occasionally, when a spot, but you have to look at the market and the participants in the market, and it is the most bizarre, still broken, will always be broken market that there is, right? Because the incentives are so misaligned. You have traders who don't have real balance sheets. They don't have big balance sheets to express a long-term view. So they're trading amongst themselves with surplus disposal they get in the spot market, but it's not a lot of pounds. You have fuel buyers who are really bright, just sort of traders are bright people, but their time horizon's tomorrow. In an industry where assets, both the mines and the reactors, are really long-lived, and not only are they long-lived, but the mine to build is a 10-plus year proposition, permitting, licensing, building. The reactor, certainly in the West, is that, a little bit less in the East. Yet what at times drives the market is a bullshit spot market, which is where most of the business occurs. But people see it because there's a quoted price on it. That's easy, right? So they focus on that. So to your question, how much do they need, right? Well, so if you look at the commercial inventories, right, if there's 200 million pounds over the next several years, right? When I started this and I started talking publicly about it, I think, if memory serves correct, the consensus view was 0.5% growth through 2030 or something like that, or 2035. Well, we said at the time, we think it's 3%. Well, now you're at like 2.6, and we think consensus will keep going higher.